House Joint Memorial 4000. Clerk will read.
To the Honorable Barack Obama, President of the United Capitol, and each member of Congress from the state of Washington.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules to be suspended in House Joint Memorial 4000 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. House Joint Memorial 4000 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good gentleman from the 22nd, Representative Frechtel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we bring House Joint Memorial 4000 to the floor, and I want to thank the body today. It's been a long floor calendar, but a good one, and I think there's something powerful and symbolic about our conclusion with this. It restores power of our democracy to people, real citizens, human beings that breathe oxygen and try to live a good life in America. Everywhere we go in our travels, we hear a lot about fully funding schools or making sure that our mental health system is adequate. We are legislators of citizens. We equally get questions about unfair elections, and people say, can't you do something about that? And the truth is, Madam Speaker, we can in our state, and we have in our nation at times past. Madam Speaker, could I get the chamber quiet, please?
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Our Constitution is a living document. We know this. All power is derived from the people. We know this. And the framers unquestionably understood that there were moments in our history where our members of Congress would hold power and not seek the will of the people. In those moments, the people take power either directly or through their state legislatures to ask Congress to take action. When enough of those states pile up that action, Congress has a choice to open up a convention, a constitutional convention, to reconsider things, or more importantly, Madam Speaker, and more historically, they hit the panic button. They say, my goodness, we would not want to open up the entire Constitution, but the people and the states have spoken, so they act. The Bill of Rights started this way. 5 of our last 10 amendments have started this way. If you're happy that we get to elect our U.S. senators and not have our delegation do it, you can thank this process. If you're happy that members of Congress cannot give themselves pay raises until a subsequent election, you can thank the process that we are about to go in right now. Many people say, Madam Speaker, these don't materialize. I think contrary, they do. This is a powerful notion. There will be lots of debate, lots of discussion tonight about its virtue. Quite simply, we've got to get dark money and powerful forces out of our elections so that it's returned to the people. This is the process that begins that. Sometimes it takes a year, sometimes it takes 15 years. But at the end of the day, if you believe all the power of this government is a derivative of the people, and that the Constitution establishes the states as the go-to place when Congress won't act, House Joint Memorial 4000 is our answer. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good gentleman from the 13th, Representative Manweller.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and let me compliment the good gentleman from the 22nd District. It is exciting for us on the House floor at the state level to be talking about Article 5. It's such a rare part of what we do as a con law guy. I think it's kind of neat. And I'd also say that his assessment of how Article 5 processes from the state up work, he's right on the money. Usually we don't actually get to the convention. It's the pressure itself that works. Where we diverge, and his history is right on the money, but we have never used in the Article 5 process to take rights away. We've always used the Article 5 to expand civil liberties, to expand political participation rights. We've never used the Article 5 process to narrow those rights, and that is what could possibly happen in the situation before us. This is a little bit like political cotton candy. It tastes good, it looks good, but when you look close, it might be a little bad for you. Let's be honest. This is about the idea of government regulating speech, not just any speech, political speech. And political speech was the genesis and the purpose of the First Amendment. It is the most protected speech. But we are actually, if we were to actually accomplish what this House Joint Memorial calls for, we would be in a position of having to ask the government permission to engage in political speech. You want to write a book about Ted Cruz? You might need to get permission from Uncle Sam. That might be an independent expenditure. You want to do a documentary about Benghazi? Wait a minute. You might need permission from the government. That would require FEC approval. You want to do a movie? You want to do an ad? You would have to get permission. It could all be considered electioneering and therefore subject to curtailment of free political speech. I'm not exactly excited about the idea. The people who brought us healthcare exchanges now want to have a government entity that would be responsible for saying, this is allowable, this is not. You can say this within 60 days, but not 30 days. You can say this, but only if it's not an election year, but you can't if it is. These are not hypotheticals, Madam Speaker. These questions were asked by the Solicitor General in FEC versus Citizens United. And in each case, the Solicitor General said, yes, that would be acceptable regulation under the doctrine of political free speech if we were to rule in the other direction. So this is a very, very dangerous path that we walk down, and for those reasons, I would always err on the side of more speech, not less. Please vote no.
Thank you. Additional remarks? The good lady from the 27th, Representative Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, some people talk about this issue claiming that money is free speech or that corporations are people. As a lawyer, I respect the fact that there are very complicated intellectual and legal and jurisprudential arguments about those, but I applied a little bit different test to this bill and this concept yesterday. I asked my 15-year-old kid what he thought. And when I said to him, corporations are people under this Supreme Court case, he looked at me like I was crazy. And then I said, money is free speech. And he said, Mom, corporations are not people and money is not speech. The billions that flow into campaigns are not free speech. They're not free. Special interests get their money from somewhere. And they're not really much in terms of speech either. If you watch the attack ads on TV, I think you would agree they bring a lot of heat, not very much light to the political debate. So I'd like you to think a little bit about the equivalent here. Let's say that if you are a regular member, you get to speak on a bill for 1 minute. But if you have $10 million, you're a super member and you get to speak on every bill for an hour if you so choose. We would never accept that here in this House. We wouldn't say it's fair, we wouldn't say it's good, and we wouldn't say it was right in the people's house. It's not good for our democracy either. I'm voting yes to give our kids a healthier democracy. Please vote yes, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Additional remarks? The good gentleman from the 12th District. The good gentleman from the 6th District, Representative Holy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This resolution positions itself as a vehicle to propose a constitutional amendment to remove large money from groups from having undue influence on politics. Now, the major proponent of this resolution is the California-based Political Action Committee named wolf-pac. Major contributors include California businesses such as the Young Turks, LLC, and multiple other entities out there that have contributed to this, some of which are Washington, the vast majority of which are not. Now, it's ironic that the single largest advocate is an out-of-state political action committee funded by out-of-state interests attempting to influence politics in Washington state for the purpose of keeping large multi-state interests from having an undue influence in politics. I'm not missing that fine point here, Madam Speaker. So a call for an Article 5 convention properly involves a discussion between the legislature and the people. It does not involve a conversation between our legislature and nationally funded, out-of-state, special interest political action committees. Please vote no.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good gentleman from the 22nd, Representative Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Make no mistake about it. It's about money. It's about moneyed interests trying to and sometimes succeeding in controlling our national political agenda and to a state political agenda as well. You like unlimited money? One of the next challenges is going to be against our $950 limits for primary and general elections and say, money is free speech, spend $10,000 per candidate if you want. It's going to continue to warp the political landscape, wipe out the ability of the common, regular, small contributors to have any input or any support in a campaign. And I have faith that our congressional leaders could craft an amendment that would be specific enough to talk to the use or the misuse of money in our political system and get us back on track. This is a good idea. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good gentleman from the 5th District, Representative Malgadas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, rising in support. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I think many of our veterans do too. You know, when we protect civil liberties, when we protect constitutional rights, not many of us are serving in the military to protect the rights of corporations. We're here to protect the rights of individuals. And I've formed a corporation before, and you form it to limit your liability. And the idea of having all of the rights and fewer responsibilities just doesn't sit right with me. Our political system is on trial right now, and frankly, we're losing. When congressional approval ratings are lower than colonoscopies, head lice, and traffic jams, we've got a serious issue to deal with here. People don't trust Congress. They don't trust our motivations as politicians, and I don't know that we at the state level are faring much better. So one of the things we can set some of these concerns aside is by looking at the factors that influence politics and trying to get the major money out of the system. And it's on both sides. It's, you know, business corporations as well as union corporations. Madam Speaker, if I might, there's a quote from Barry Goldwater that I think is very relevant for this.
Please proceed.
Thank you. In order to achieve the widest possible distribution of political power, financial contributions to political campaigns should be made by individuals and individuals alone. I see no reason for labor unions or corporations to participate in politics. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good lady from the 36th, Representative Frame.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, I think some would argue that the Constitution should never be touched, that we should honor that original intent. But, Madam Speaker, I would disagree. There is a process in place to amend that Constitution, and that's what we're talking about here today. It's a high, high bar. But we should consider it, Madam Speaker, because I think our original founders could not have anticipated what we are seeing today. By the billions of dollars spent on campaigns, on direct mail hit pieces, on TV ads, they would not recognize the big money political interests that we see having an undue influence on our political process today. I'm voting yes because I want to end the power of unlimited money in our politics. I want to restore the notion that it's not the size of our campaign accounts that matters. It's the quality of the quality of our ideas. I'm voting yes, Madam Speaker, because I think it's time that we start to take back our democracy. I urge your support.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good gentleman from the 35th, Representative McEwen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the gentleman's passion from the 22nd in bringing this forward. And I just want to bring up an issue here that really hasn't been addressed, and this may very well be for a debate in whether we amend the Constitution to address this issue. But the bigger problem that we have here is that this is going down a path with no rules, no sideboards that we often talk about in this chamber. My friend, the good gentleman from the 12th District, and I attended the first meeting at Mount Vernon a few years ago, representing about 36 different states, where we started this process working with a number of different issues that could be looked at under an Article 5. That process is still ongoing, and we have roughly 36 states working together to adopt rules so we don't end up in a runaway situation. I believe that that path is more prudent and would have much more of an effect, and whether this issue and some of the other issues be debated remains to be seen. I just feel strongly that going down this path right now without any sideboards leads us to a very serious situation. And if I may, I'd like to read a quote real quick from Justice Scalia.
Please proceed.
This was in the National Endowment for the Arts versus Finley. The operation was a success, but the patient died. I'd hate for that to be the result of this. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks? The good gentleman from the 46th, Representative Paulette.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, President Lincoln, in one of the statements that has defined representative democracy for 200 years, said famously, government of the people, by the people, for the people. Citizens United would change that to be government of the people, by the corporations, for the corporations. It is up to us as a representative democracy to reclaim that representative democracy and the true spirit of the First Amendment to the Constitution, and recognize that corporations are creatures of the states in which they are incorporated. And just as this state could say, no corporation incorporated here can violate law X, Y, or Z, it could also say it should not engage in political campaign expenditures. It is very unlike any association of individuals. And when the Supreme Court majority said there is no difference between individuals associating and a state-created entity deciding that it is going to engage in political campaign expenditures, it was wrong. And it is time for us to reclaim that our government and our First Amendment should be of the people, by the people, for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks? The good gentleman from the 31st, Representative Stokesbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The joint memorial before us references the Supreme Court decision, Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission. But let us dispel the notion that Citizens United represented any kind of revolutionary development in constitutional interpretation. In fact, there are no less than 10 cases that held for the proposition that corporations have free speech rights. Madam Speaker, may I read a few of those case names?
Please proceed.
Lindmark Associates v. Willingboro, Time Inc. v. Firestone, Duran v. Salem Inn Inc., Southeastern Promotions Limited v. Conrad, Cox Broadcasting Corp. v. Cone, Miami Herald Publishing v. Tornillo, New York Times Company v. United States, Time Inc. v. Hill, New York Times Company v. Sullivan, Kingsley International Pictures Corp. v. Regents of New York University, Joseph Burston Inc. v. Wilson. Madam Speaker, these are not opinions written by conservatives like Justice Scalia or Justice Rehnquist. These are decisions that came out under the courts of Earl Warren and Warren Burger. Those are not conservative jurists. Those are liberal courts that said corporations have free speech rights. Madam Speaker, the First Amendment says any individual has free speech rights and any individual has freedom of association. So if an individual decides to associate with one other person and take advantage of liability protection offered by the corporate form, how on earth do they suddenly lose their free speech rights? Citizens United was not some Fortune 500 international conglomerate. It was 3 people who wanted to put forth a documentary. Madam Speaker, if the federal government can shield the free speech rights of 3 people, they can shield the free speech rights of anybody. They can shield the free speech rights of the people on this floor, of newspapers. Madam Speaker, I urge a no vote. This is a very troubling prospect.
Thank you. Additional remarks? The good gentleman from the 31st, Representative Hurst.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I just wanted to answer the comments of the good gentleman from the 35th. I wouldn't worry about the sideboards. I would take the sideboards off. I would take the vehicle, I would cut the brake lines, and I would send it down the hill with Citizens United with it into the lake and drowned it. This is a horrible decision. This is not a time for caution. It's not a time to think this through anymore. It is time to take this decision, and start a process that will restore confidence of the people in our elected process. When you go and talk to folks today, the disillusionment is coming from this enormous amount of money that's being spent. And if we do not return that, we're going to continue to have the lowest number of people voting in our elections of any free country in the world. That is not acceptable. It's an embarrassment. And this is how we cause people to believe that their vote means something and that it is a government by the people.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good gentleman from the 12th District, Representative Kandata.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm just thrilled that we're having this conversation tonight because there's no one closer to the Article 5 process on this floor than I am. I went with my friend from the 35th to the first meeting of the Assembly of State Legislators in Mount Vernon, and I've been to every meeting since. And the difference with this group is it's elected people, elected legislators only from around the states. There is no outside influence. There is no lobbying. And that was why we did it that way. We wanted to make sure that there was no influence, right or left. And the whole goal of our process was to see if it could be done. This has never been exercised. Article 5 has never really been pulled off a convention of states. And I'm telling you, I'm believing it can be done, but it has to be done correctly. And correctly means first the right set of rules. It's taken us 3 years to write the rules. We have done something nobody else has done, this group. We've written the rules, and we will finish them in Philadelphia in May. And when we have the rules done, then we will go to the next step. But we are doing it methodically and doing it in a precision manner, and I am here to tell you it's going pretty well. But the problem is there's outside...
Can the good gentleman from the 12th address the Speaker? Please proceed.
I apologize. Yes, it is going well, but this procedure has to continue on the track we're on. We cannot have outside groups doing this. I do not support this resolution because it is somewhat one-sided to one side of the spectrum, and I do not support the other resolution that has been put in this system that is so much the other way. That is not the way it's going to be done, and no outside group is ever going to pull this off. If it's going to be done, it's going to be done by the states themselves, by the legislators that are in those states, and we've got the president of the Indiana Senate, the president of the Utah Senate, and senators from all over the United States. If it's going to be done, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. This particular resolution is premature, it's dangerous, and it's partisan, and that is not the way we're ever going to pull this off. I am recommending a no vote for tonight.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good lady from the 46th, Representative Farrell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this resolution. And I rise with a sense of pride and excitement over the debate that we've had today because we are exercising that very precious freedom of political speech. I know that all of us here find that freedom to be so precious and to believe so deeply in our very American experiment of self-government. And I think that what we are talking about today is a sense of dismay from both sides of the aisle over the power and influence of money and the fact that individual voices are getting drowned out as we attempt to exercise that precious freedom of political speech. And so today I support this resolution because I support individual voices being able to participate in democracy, being able to participate in the decisions that affect their lives. And when we're making decisions and when we're making statements around political speech that is very much influenced by the size of the check that gets written or the size of a bank account and being able to buy TV ads and send mailers and all of those things that we've talked about, it's very troublesome. And I know that each of us wants to support and promote that idea that every single one of us is able to participate in our democracy. And one of the things that I find so amazing and wonderful about this American experiment is as we've marched through the decades, we have increased participation. And so the reason this resolution is so important today is so that individuals can continue to participate and continue to weigh in about the decisions that affect their lives. I urge support.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good lady from the 10th, Representative Smith.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm rising in opposition to this resolution today. And I think it's important for us, particularly those of us who are older, to remind those who are coming after us of the heartbreak of watching what has happened to our political process because of the influence of large dollars. And it is my belief that although I appreciate the heart around this effort, I believe that we have a better way forward with a process that is formed from within the states to call the convention and to do it in a way that is ordered where we have the greatest chance of success. If we don't address these issues and inspire another generation to believe in the best of our political process, that we can take on those who have hijacked our system, where a few voices drown out those who don't have a voice. How do we get there? I believe that the good gentleman from the 12th has talked about our best hope. And that's why I'm supporting that path forward. I am broken-hearted at what has happened. My dad and mom didn't have much, but they did extraordinary community building in our hometown, working for a Democrat member of Congress. And they asked one thing of him. They'd put fish fries on for him, and we would have hundreds of people. They'd go into debt to do it. And Daddy always asked one thing of him: tell me the truth and live out integrity. That's how I was raised, to treat people with respect, to hear their voice, to represent them. And right now, those people who don't have a voice have us here. Until we put together a constitutional convention that can address all of the out-of-control spending, be it corporate or union. This is about what's doing the right thing for those who have no voice. It's not about partisan politics. And I would encourage a no vote today, and I would encourage this House this day to say we will lead the nation on a constitutional convention that has the proper sideboards. For heaven's sakes, President Washington, when he led the Constitutional Convention, closed the blinds, let no notes inside and outside flow, because he was protecting the integrity of the process. Oh. Thank you. I encourage a no vote today and a yes on the effort.
Thank you. Additional remarks? Seeing none, the question before the House is final passage of House Joint Resolution 4000. The Speaker is about to open the roll call machine. The Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Would any member like to change his or her vote? The Speaker is about to lock the roll call machine. Representative Caldier, how do you vote? The Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 52 yea, 46 nays, 0 excused or not voting.
Having received a constitutional majority, House Joint Memorial 4000 is declared passed. Where is he?